Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. And for those of you who are here for the first time, my show is about celebration. It's about celebrating art. It's about celebrating artists. It's about celebrating people from all walks of life. There are all kinds of things to celebrate. According to checkaday.com, today is National Crop Dusters Day. How many of you are celebrating that? It's also National Grab a Nut Day. I hope that I am the only nut that you're grabbing today. And it's also National Labris Willendorf Day because we are celebrating how I became the love of my life. When I first read about this book, I said, I have to have her on the show. I reached out to her. We didn't know anything about each other. And thank God she said yes. Now, we hear so many negative things about social media, and there are a lot of things out there that are negative about social media, but this is one thing that we can celebrate, and I am so thrilled that she is here today because this is an amazing journey. Labris, I am so glad to finally meet you. How are you today?
Hi, Richard. I'm so glad to finally meet you. I'm great. I'm excited, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I want to ask you, what are you celebrating today?
I am celebrating the fact that this is my first interview and that I am, on this journey. And I really feel like it's taken me a while to get here. And I feel like I have a lot more that's going to be in the future. And I'm just excited for all of it unfolding. And I feel like this is a big part of that. And so I'm celebrating being here with you.
Well, as you know, you've seen some of my previous shows. My shows are all about celebration, and I want to celebrate the fact that you are a brilliant writer. I hope that you know that. What I'm really taking, reading your book, all of these episodes that you've gone through, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you share it all, warts and all, and you take us right there. I want to know, have you always been a writer? Did you keep journals growing up, or did all of this come from sense memory when you felt that you had a need to sit down and tell your story?
I did write, it was kind of off and on growing up. A while ago, I found this little book I had made my parents. And then I found a journal, I think from sixth grade, which was so funny. It was, all about some drama that, sixth graders would have. And then in community college, I wrote a little bit. And then I just stopped when I was married, and that was my own choice. But I've always had poetry or different stories kind of rattling around in there. And then, I just had this overwhelming need that I had to get my stories out. Yeah. Now,
there's so many great aspects that we learn about you in the book, and we don't want to give away everything because we want people to buy the book. That's first and foremost. But I want to start when you were just a little girl. I have a photograph of you. I think you're either 5 or 6 here. There you are. Is this your father?
Yeah, that's my dad.
Okay. What can you tell us about this little girl? For me, 5 years old is that time in a person's life before you start school, and peer pressure starts getting added on, and also the layers that teachers start adding on to us, what we should be, what we shouldn't be. What can you tell us about that little girl?
She was definitely fun. She loved to read. Both my parents would read to me, and I think that really helped spur my imagination as far as continuing to read and to write. And yeah, I just was at that point an only child and loved, I think I had a stuffed animal. Her name was Henrietta. She was this chubby little koala. And because I was, I guess not right there, but growing up, I was a little bit overweight. And so I just really loved my stuffed animals that were a little, furry and chunky. So yeah, I just really was fun. We liked to play games and just be creative. In the house, we would just, play. I think my favorite game was I think it was a little older, but it was a grocery store game where you would beep the things. I would play with my Halloween candy and
Now, this might sound like a silly question that I'm going to ask you, but did you feel that you were really overweight, or did you feel that you were overweight because this is what people were telling you?
I never heard it from my parents. It was just something that as I went to school, I just noticed, that a lot of, or what I felt like most people were smaller than me.
And did you feel that you fit in, or did you want to fit in?
I did at that point want to fit in. And so, but I also love eating. So
You and me both. I am on such a strict diet right now. It's not even funny. But going through school, when did you feel that you were starting to live your authentic self? Or did that begin to happen much later in life? And when I'm talking about living your authentic self, you are gay. Full disclosure, I am too. So I'm not outing you today. It's in the book.
Right. I feel like it kind of happened a couple of times. I came out right before I went to UC Santa Cruz because I felt like, everyone says, oh, well, you go to UC Santa Cruz, you go to college or whatever, and then you're bi or gay or whatever. And so I wanted to be like, no, this is not UC Santa Cruz, this is me. And so I feel like I was coming into my own at that point, but my authentic self, I really feel like I started that, because before I met my wife, I would take myself out on dates and, because I, dated here and there, but I was like, none of these people are that great. I'd rather just take myself to the movies or hang out with a friend or, and then, I met her when I was 23. So I feel like I was developing, and then that happened, with her. But then I think that I stunted myself and wanting to become somebody that I thought she wanted me to be. And so I think
bingo, the lights are going off now.
So I think truly me would be when I left my marriage and I, didn't know what the hell was happening in my life or who, I feel like I always had a sense like something, but then really like investigating and being, sometimes more excited than other times to figure out who I was. But so I would say probably authentically within the last probably 7 years.
Good for you. And were you very much on the dating scene before you met Jay?
A little bit, but I was in college, and so it was just sort of who I met there, and not a huge. I dated a few people here and there, but nothing. Gosh, I think my high school boyfriend was maybe the longest, 9 or 10 months.
I had my own Jay episode in my life, that person that you become so infatuated with that your whole life goes off kilter, that you do everything to appease them, to become what you think they want you to be, to the point of almost becoming invisible. And that's why, again, I love the title of your book. Let's go back to you go into this in the book about how you and Jay met. And if you can take us back to that moment and then talk us through the first few years of the relationship.
Sure. So we met at UCSC, and I was part of, it was called Women's Ensemble Theater, and it was called WET, up at Kresge College. That's one of the colleges at UCSC. And we were both students there, and I was on the board of who was going to be, or the committee, who was going to be performing. And she came in, and she was a stand-up comedian. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. And so, instantly I was like, she's hilarious. Who is this? And then we both started practicing and performing, and we were friends for a little bit.
But
and
in the
then,
program, you used to follow her with a more serious presentation,
yes,
correct?
yes,
And,
yes.
but she improvised a lot, which somehow threw you sometimes.
Yes, because she was really funny, and I thought, like, okay, it's going to be this. I've heard it; it's fine. And then when we were actually like performing live, it's like she was switching up, and and at that point, I really was taking myself more seriously. You're like 22, and you're going to change the world, and I was this feminist, queer activist, and doing what was it? It was a spoken word dance piece, so I took myself, it was very important. And I was like, and she was just out there having fun. I was like, wait a second.
But let me ask you, at this point, I mean, before the relationship actually happened, did you have, or did you think that you had your life mapped out as to where you were going to be in, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, 15? Were you that type of person, or you had no idea?
No, at one point I thought, because I majored in women's studies, I thought, oh, maybe I'd be a lawyer, or, do something creative. Like, I just didn't know. I didn't know. I was just excited to get a degree.
So you meet, and all of a sudden, you're walking home one night after a performance, and magic happens.
Yes.
Yes.
And so, and then the rest is history. No.
Yes, the rest is history. No. All of it is in the book. But, without going into too much of the details, because we do want, once again, people to read the book, you thought you were together for, 14 years, was it?
Almost 14, yeah.
Almost 14 years. You were poised to create a family. You had a dog, so you did have somewhat of a family. All of the things were together. You had a home together. And then one night, out of the blue, a bombshell is dropped on you, and your world comes crashing around you. Mm-hmm. And if you can take us back to that.
So it had been pretty precarious for probably at least 6 months to a year. And then, it just wasn't a good, like, I didn't know who I was coming home to. Like, it just felt in the moment, like I didn't realize how bad it was. And then,
But you didn't realize, what was actually going on.
Right. I knew there was something. And then, it was like, we had this whole idea of, oh, we should be spending time with other people and friends and this and that. And she just happened to be spending time with another woman. And I, looking back, I was like, duh.
But let me ask you, what was the dynamic of the relationship that the two of you had? I mean, obviously, when two people come together, you have your friends, she has her friends, and then hopefully in a situation where two people come together, and you don't go into a lot of details about this in the book, about the friends from both worlds coming together. What were the dynamics of all of those friends coming together in terms of how they were responding to either you or her separately or together?
You mean with the breakup, or just in general? Or
no, in general, as far as the relationship.
In general, we really built friends together, like it was either from work or from school. And so we had, a core group of friends that were really both of our friends. I mean, some were more mine or more hers. But I felt that they cared about both of us, equally. And when everything kind of exploded, I reached out to people, whereas she was more reclusive, and, then blamed everybody for not, taking her side or whatever. And it was like, I'm not telling them to take my side. I'm just saying I need people. Like, I can't do this. I don't know my life is exploding and I just need help, and our, I don't, yeah, I can't speak for her, but for them, they're like, well, we try and reach out. And, I think it was, I think maybe she just needed to separate herself and it was easier to make new friends or, but I'm like, no, I'm keeping these.
Well, how much of yourself did you actually give up over those 14 years?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
How much of yourself did you actually give up over those 14 years?
It's hard to say because it was so slow. And I think that's how that happens. And you might have experiences as well, as that if it's overnight, like you're not going to be like, no, I'm not going to be this whole other person. But when it's one comment at a time or one look or one, you know what I mean? Just a feeling that you get when, so I would say at least half. I mean, I just really feel like I wanted to be, this person and instead of just being myself, So, and I'm sure that was part of it. But.
So I want to go to the pivotal night where your life truly changed on a dime. You posed a question to her and she gave you not a definitive answer, but a somewhat sort of an answer. Were you expecting what you got?
I wasn't expecting it, but then I wasn't surprised.
Mm-hmm. And so you get this, and again, take us back to what you were feeling emotionally at that moment, and the next steps that you started to take in your life.
So basically, we were drunk because that was what we did. Because of course we were masking our feelings and everything that was going on in the house. So
I love this, the story of you talking about going to a party early on and the fruit in the punch bowl, and you're eating the fruit, not realizing that all of the alcohol was going to the fruit.
This is delicious. Whoa, why is everything
good? This is good.
Yes, I did not drink very much back then and didn't know. So now lesson learned, but so basically that night I found out, or she admitted or whatever that she had cheated, and I just knew who it was. Like I just knew all of it. Like she didn't even have to say, and I was just done. Like I just, our relationship had been, emotionally abusive and verbally abusive. And I was like, it was, with that was already bad enough. I was thinking about leaving. I had a therapist. And so when this came, I was like, I can't
without disclosing too much of what was going on, for confidentiality purposes, conversations between you and your therapist, was, the possibility if there were extenuating circumstances that you would leave this relationship, because already, even though this was going on and you were not totally aware of it, it was already a toxic relationship.
Yes. So that was something, but I just had no idea how I would do it. We were just so entrenched with the bank accounts and the house and the dog and, and so, but when I got this news, I was just like, basically that night I just stayed in our guest room because I was too drunk to leave. And I was like, I have no idea what my life's going to be like, but I know it's got to be better than this.
Well, how are you? I have to be on it. My father was an alcoholic, so I grew up in that kind of a household. I have never been drunk, so I don't know what that state is like, to be honest with you. But having those kind of emotions of hurt and pain and anger, and then having that other layer on top of it, how does one get through a night like that?
Basically, I just went into planning mode. I was like, where can I move? What can I, I contacted my friend that has a place in Mexico. I was like, maybe I'll live in Mexico. It was just, and then she had a studio in Santa Cruz. And so I just was like, well, maybe I can stay there. So I was just basically like emailing, like trying to figure out where I could go just even the next day. So I had already had a plan with my gay best friend that we were going to have like a ladies' night. And then I was like, can this be a slumber party? And he's like, sure. He's like, but bring some sheets. Oh gosh, I was like, I'll bring whatever. So yeah, so basically that night I mean, I think I blocked part of it out because I just was trying to sleep and trying to figure it out. And then she would come in and apologize, and it was just a mess. And I was just like, I can't.
Did she, I mean, do you think that she thought that there was any possibility of reconciliation at this point?
I really believe that she didn't think that I was strong enough to leave. Like, I think that she thought that she would tell me this, we'd figure it out, I'd forgive her, and it was the opposite. I was like, bye. The next morning.
Well, I mean, don't you feel that that was based on the relationship that you had, though, for 14 years, that you were constantly giving in to the relationship? But you were strong enough to leave. And what advice do you give? We'll go there for a moment, to anyone else who is going through this right now in their own lives?
I would say that you can do it. That there's something there, even if it's like 1%, it's a tiny bit that you can trust yourself, and more than anybody else what's best for you, and that it's, even if it's just a little bit each day, like, you can figure it out. Ask a friend, ask a family member, and just go with your gut and know that you deserve a joyful life.
Now, I want to talk about the different aspects of your life that you started to take control over. First of all, moving. You got out of the house, you moved, and you created a new life there. And then, and I love this aspect for you, you went for a whole new makeover.
Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't dye my hair and, stuff like that when I was with my ex, because she's like, oh, you're so beautiful this way. And of course I wanted to be beautiful to her, and, but she was like, ugh, blondes are so boring and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, I want to see, I'm like, well, blondes have more fun. I want to check this out. And then my hairdresser, who's this fabulous gay man, I called him because I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday or in the middle of the week. And I was like, I want to be blonde. And he was like, had this squeal. I was like, I don't know who was more excited, him or I. So it was really
Was this
fun.
something that he had envisioned himself of you being blonde?
Yeah, he was always trying to get me to do stuff. I was like, no, and because he would cut my hair, but we wouldn't ever, color it. And so he was and it took a little bit, I have a picture from that day, like it's still like kind of brown and blonde, and then we just slowly, like, I just became platinum. And so, yeah, he calls me Marilyn or Madonna, I love him. He's great.
So, Labris, you've got this dichotomy thing going on, because on one level, there's this side of you that where I think that on some level you go, okay, I'm going to fit into the box that society wants me to fit into. And then the other side of you is, I'm not going to fit into that box no matter what. So you were like stretching to step outside of your comfort zone, and you were looking for ways to step out of your comfort zone, including this major trip that you took. So if you can tell us a little bit about this trip and what that did for you, both mentally and psychologically.
Sure. So
mentally and physically.
Yeah, all of it.
Yes, all of it.
So I had a friend of mine in design school. Her husband had walked the Camino de Santiago, which is a 500-mile pilgrimage in northern Spain, for those of you who don't know. And I just remember hearing about this 500 miles in Spain and thinking, like, what is that? And then I went and saw the movie The Way, which I highly recommend. I mean, it's fiction, but it really intrigued me. And I had taken a couple of days off work. I was trying to figure out, like, right after all this happened, like, what I was going to do with my life. And, luckily my therapist was great. She's like, don't quit your job. Don't move. Just stay and, try and figure out, so I was like, all right. And then what came to me was, I have to walk the Camino. Like, this is I don't know how or why, but this is the only thing that makes sense in my life right now. And it just so happens that my friends were going to be walking it. They were supposed to walk it the fall before I was going to go. And then unfortunately she hurt her foot, but then that meant we could all go at the same time. And so even though I walked some of it with them, there was many weeks that I was by myself, and then I had another journey, which is in the book, but it was the idea that I was in this country, I speak a little bit of Spanish, but, and my great grandmother was actually born in Madrid, but that I was there mostly by myself and walking from place to place. Like there were I wasn't driving there. And the idea that you can have everything that sustains you on your back, and just looking back, at the end of a day after walking like 15 miles and being like, I was there and now I'm here and I did this, just really helped develop this sense in me that was like, I can do whatever it is, that I want to do in my life. I just have to envision it and figure out ways to do it.
Now, the way is fiction, as you say, but it has to be based on reality. In other, that it can be done. So you did do this, and you went through it. How did you prepare for it?
So I never really saw myself as an athletic person, being, a chubby little girl. And then through this, that also helped with me physically, and just realizing that you don't have to be 110 pounds to be an athletic person, and so I joined a gym and I walked with my friends on the weekends. And I just really, I think being physical also helps that emotional part of you, and to just really feel strong, not just emotionally, but you're like, yeah, look at these muscles, look at my thighs. And, and I can walk 10 miles and, or however many miles, or, run at the gym and not be totally winded. And, and I actually ran an entire mile, which I'd never done before. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot to people, but for somebody, that doesn't really exercise. And so it just really helped. Like I started doing 5Ks and 10Ks, and it just really, it just helped me feel proud of who I was. And I had been so, not proud, and not really knowing who I was. And then to really be like, yeah, I can do this, and then the incremental steps of 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles. And then, going.
And what did this do for you on a spiritual level to walk that path?
I definitely am a spiritual person. It is a, Catholic pilgrimage, but people, from all walks of life walk it and are there for their own reasons. And to me, it was being just really believing in myself and in a higher power, that because the way that it happened, to me was a miracle. And that's in the book. I won't give it all away, but it was like, how am I going to take 6 weeks off? How am I going to, have the money? How's all that going to happen?
You also mentioned in the book that when you asked for the 6 weeks off, that you also had in the back of your mind guilt, that it wasn't fair to all the other people. Like, what are they thinking? She's asking for 6 weeks off, but you asked for it and you got it.
Right. And that's become one of my mantras, is just ask, right? Because you could get the yes. And if you don't ask, it's already a no. So what the heck, and I've definitely gotten some no's, but I've definitely got some awesome yeses. So yeah,
Is it easier now for you to say yes to all the things that you want to say yes to, or no to the things that you want to say no to? How did that change as far as, when you came back, did your friends see a change in you? Did they start acknowledging the change in you?
They did. And, there was part of me that, I don't want to give too much away, but just that had felt a little bit of guilt of how I walked it and different things. And I thought, are people going to be, how are they going to react to me? And there was such this genuine love and acceptance, and oh my gosh, I can't believe you walked, these many miles, and, and just that. And, I think that they got to see, me transform throughout, a few years, and to kind of go on that journey. And, hopefully that helped them too. We could help each other in figuring out, what we're doing on this planet.
Now, I want to talk about the process of the book. First of all, with everything that you've been through, that you decide, a lot of people go through a lot of stuff in their lives, and a lot of it never finds its way to paper. And even if it does find its way to paper, very little finds its way into the hands of complete strangers who hopefully become very good friends. But what was the seed for you that said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a book?
I was doing a lot of like reading self-help books and meditating, and Oprah and Deepak Chopra were doing these 21-day meditations. And so one of them, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically like, what is the one thing that you've told nobody about, but that you really want to do? And in the meditation, it was write a book. And I was like, where did that come from? And then I just kept thinking about it. And probably about a month later, I was sitting down with a really good friend, and she asked me that question. She's like, is there anything that you really want to do that you haven't told anybody? And I'm like, what's happening here? And I was like, well, it was almost kind of like whispering, well, I want to write a book. She's like, wait, what? I was like, I want to write a book, but who's going to want it? And, I just had all this negative stuff. And she was like, oh my God, that's great. She's like, and here's a number. Like, I found this flyer that had, and I just thought, I don't know, somebody might want this. It was for a book completion class. And so it was like within a matter of, hours or whatever, I was like calling and seeing if there was an opening. And he said there was. And it was called The Opening, actually. And then I just started. Like, I just was like, I'm going to go for it. Maybe nobody will ever read it. Maybe I'm just doing it for myself. But it was really about
the idea that you were meditating on it, and your friend asked you and brought this up and happened to have this. That's what's called collective consciousness, that these things start to pop up in, all around us. And everyone who's watching and listening, once you begin to tune into these things, you will find that there's a synchronicity, not to sound too woo-hoo about all this, but it's true. No, it does happen. Exactly. So once you decide that you're going to write a book, did you know that you were going to write a book that would begin with, your book actually starts with the trip, but then it jumps like this, wow, right into the relationship and the breakup, because obviously that was a major turning point in your life. Did you know that this was going to be the direction that you were going to go in?
I didn't. I just, wanted it to be, an example that, like, whoever you are, you can turn something that's so negative, into a positive and just really live your authentic life. Like you were saying, just, have joy. Like, you don't have to, be somebody you're not. You can, it's like, just be you. And so I thought, well, with the experiences that I had, I was like, there's travel in there, there's sex in there, there's heartbreak, there's, all kinds of things. So I didn't know, I wanted to start it with the Camino, but I didn't know, how it was all going to flow.
And you have all these negative thoughts. You said yourself, will anyone read the book? Will anyone be interested? All these things that you're thinking about. What was the first step that you took to get past those negative thoughts?
Really, the writing group helped me, because in that, it was this awesome, like, 3-hour evening class, and you have time to write, you have time to talk with the teacher, and then you read an excerpt and get feedback. And I was getting really great feedback, and it didn't feel fake. It didn't feel like, oh, it's so great, good for you. It was like, we like this part, and he has this process where you read back parts of that you connect with. And so to hear your own words, there's a power in that, of like, oh, that can, that touched you, you connected with that because that's something, that maybe I wouldn't think of, or that I was really excited about. So I think that helped build that confidence, and like, oh, people would be interested, And
were these classes in person, or were they virtually?
They were in person. Yeah.
And when did you complete the book?
So I completed the book in, I think it was 2017 or 2018. Where are we at now? Yeah. It was August of, I believe, 2017.
So August, here we are, and here we are talking. So you are in this class. How many students are in the class in addition to yourself?
I would say there was probably maybe 6 other people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So obviously, when you get up and you read, a passage from your book, 6, 7, counting your teacher, 7 different points of view. You're hearing all these different things. How do you process when you're hearing 7 different points of view? Were they pretty much all on the same page? Or were you hearing it's too much information, it's not enough information? How do you know what to censor or how to edit what you're going to present to the world?
They were mostly on the same page, but there would be times where like something would really grab someone and then something else, that it wouldn't be. And so I really just, surprisingly, just focused on the positive stuff. The negative stuff, I was like, well, that's their opinion, or maybe I'll figure or fix it, or, but I just thought I have to be true. This is something that I'm putting out into the world, and I can't have it be, I don't want to go back to being somebody that I think somebody wants me to be,
Mm-hmm.
So, and my teacher was so instrumental in that, he was just like, okay, so what is it that you're trying to say here? So it was more about like details. And that was probably the thing that I had the hardest with, is that, I lived it, so I see it, right? But he's just like, what does this person look like? Or what is it, because I'd be like, well, I'm here and I'm with this person or that person. It's like, okay, but what does their hair look like? Or what is, how does it feel? And so that was the feedback that was the most helpful, because I'm like, oh, that's right. Whoever's reading this, they don't know what the situation is. They're, finding out for the first time.
And how long did it take for you to step out of the comfort of your class and start sharing these stories with your friends?
Quite a while, I would say. I mean, some of the stories I hadn't even told people that are in the book, but yeah, I want to say, it would almost be like, oh, I can read like this part of my book to you, or at a certain point, I sent like a rough draft to some friends to just sort of see what they thought, and that was, and also to my sister and sister-in-law, and so that was helpful. To have like, oh, okay, maybe it's too much about my ex, or maybe there's, I don't know, we could have a little more travel, or, or a little more emotion. And so I am grateful to my sister and her wife, because they're like, okay, so you have the sadness, but could you describe it a little more, and it was like, I don't want to describe my sadness. I don't want to be sad. I'm kind of angry or happy, but but that's true, I mean, and that was like, I really wanted that to come across. So it's like, you got to get in there with those emotions if you don't want to.
And did you always have the title of the book in mind, or did that come through trial and error?
Trial and error. It was funny. One of the thoughts that I had was Daring Greatly, which is by Brene Brown, and which I'm actually currently reading on vulnerability. So I was like, okay, well, I can't have that. And then, I just wanted it to be something that, was just, it just sort of did come to me after, a couple other options.
Well, how do you know what to edit in terms of, because you are very open in this book, wounds, triumphs, everything. When do you know what to edit out when you're telling your story? And this is your true story. This is your stories with every relationship, not to negate anything that's in the book. Your former, your ex, may have a completely different way of looking at things from the way that you see things. Did you get any feedback from her at all?
No. I'm assuming that she knows that I have written a book, but I'm
assuming you're using a different name.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Okay.
There was an incident where she was, was going to sue me for my book, which I'm like, I don't think you can sue someone for a memoir, but okay. And I'm not using your real name. So yeah, because she was like, I don't want to be famous, which I just thought was hilarious. And I was like, well, if you're famous, then I'm going to be like super famous. So all right, I'll take it.
Is she still holding on to that anger?
I hope that she's not. I don't know. We haven't talked in a few years, because it just, I tried to be friends and it was just too toxic. And I realized, I was like, everyone else in my life is supportive and I enjoy being around. I don't feel crappy after I hang out with them.
We're dealing with a situation right now in New York, and I'm not taking sides with what I'm about to say, but the Attorney General of New York interviewed our governor over the weekend, and there are all these sexual allegations, with our governor. And he gave a statement denying all of them. And there are like 197 witnesses saying that these things took place. And so, but his story is completely the antithesis of what happened. And it's always amazing in a situation like this. And even in my own situation, when I went through my bad relationship, that we went to family therapy together. And he said to the therapist, please tell him that he's wrong. And that they can't own. And I'm sure that there are moments where you go, I own these aspects of my life.
For sure. Yeah. I think that it is, what is it? There's always two sides and then the truth, right? So I know that she has a different way of looking at it. And, and for a while I thought we were both owning things, and then, I don't really know what happened, but I just know it's better for me that we aren't in contact. And, I don't wish anything bad on her. I just feel like it's better to just not,
well, it sounds to me like you have taken control and you've moved on. And
exactly. I'm so happy.
How did you come to this title, which I love?
Well, it was really true for me. I was like, I don't have to have somebody to complete me or somebody to, be my better half, or I wanted that. And I really believed that I was going to find a wonderful love and partner. But I couldn't focus on that. Like my heart was so demolished that it was like, no, I got to put myself back together. Like I have to be in love with myself and my love, and then I can find someone. And that's really, the point of this is that I feel like if we all really loved ourselves, the world would be just a much sparklier place.
Absolutely. I saw a quote this morning and it says, don't find the person that you have to live with. Find the person that you can't live without.
Exactly.
And that's what we look for in our relationships. Right now you're in a wonderful relationship.
Yes.
And so, you're living, a full, grounded life. Are there other books in your future, do you think?
I do. Yeah. I am thinking about, maybe a sequel to that one, because that one actually ended, probably 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that. And then, I'm right now, my focus is I really am wanting to reach out and kind of share this, not necessarily, yes, my book, and also the idea of being a witness or being support or inspiration or however you want to call it for other people. So I'm working on a website, Become the Love of Your Life. And I
want to ask you about that, because in your bio, the link is there, but it's not active yet.
It's not.
When will it be active?
Go ahead. Sorry.
When will it be active? Do you have a launch date for that?
My goal was, yesterday, but right in time for this, of course. But that didn't happen. And so really by the end of the month, and I have a logo that that I do actually have. And so I'm going to hopefully at least put that up. And then I have all the pages, but they're just not live yet, because I'm trying to, I know that nothing is perfect, but I just want to have it be a little more together.
Well, let me know when it's ready, and I will absolutely put it out there and let as many people know about it as possible. So is this book the book that you intended it to be?
Yes. Yeah, I really wanted it to show, kind of an arc of not knowing who you are and having, some devastation, and then, the steps that I took to really be the love of my life and to really be thriving and not just kind of, living and, just seeing the world.
And when did you know that your book was ready it's like giving birth. When did you know that it was ready to let go?
I don't know if it's like, I feel like you could always, like reading through it and stuff. I'm like, oh, I could change that, So I think at a certain point, I just was like, I had been, I had given myself a goal, I think, of like 3 years. And so I was like, this just has to be done, and then I spent time trying to get, someone else to publish it. But memoirs are challenging if you're not famous, which I understand. And so I didn't do anything with it for a few years. And then at the end of last year, my partner was like, well, why don't you publish it yourself? And I had all this sort of weird shame around publishing it myself. Like, oh, well, a real publisher isn't, just again, that negative self-talk. And then I thought, you know what? I've done so many other things. Why can't I do it? And then it's how I want it to be, and it's distributed, and then I can be the one promoting it. And then I just got really excited about it. But it was just like her saying, well, why don't you do it? And it was like, why don't I do this?
So that was your partner, and good for you. And so this process took 3 years to write the book.
Yes.
So at the end of the 3 years, what's the one thing that you've learned most about yourself that surprised you the most about yourself?
I think really being dedicated. Like I was writing, if not every day, every other day, and just really being diligent, being in my class, getting feedback, editing. I did work, with an editor, and just not taking things too personally. If it was like, what about this or that? And so just that, like, I actually saw it through.
And what's the biggest impact that's happened with you? I mean, you and I are meeting here, but what's the biggest impact that's happened since the book came out, in terms of how has your life changed since the book has come out?
Well, I really wanted it to, like I said, like be an example, or just be a silent friend, to people. And so what's impacted me is hearing, reading reviews and, getting messages on Facebook from friends of friends, or strangers that are just like, this is really helping me reevaluate my life. And, thank you for being so brave and open, and kind of raw about things. And so, which is really what I wanted. I wanted to have that connection and really be in community with people. And so it's like, every time it just touches me, and I'm like, that's what I wanted,
Great.
And so and I have it in bookstores, and it's all, because I'm like, what, this is important to me, and I just want to put it out there. So
Well, I have to ask you this question. I hope you won't be offended by this, but you have to tell me about the witch's underwear.
oh oh, this is hilarious. So if Julie's watching.
For anyone that's watching, this has to do with a comment that I saw on Facebook.
Yes. So, years ago, when I was still friends with my ex, we had gone to dinner, which, was not good. But when I was leaving, some friends that were in my writing class came up to me, and she didn't know that I was writing a book, because I was like, I am not going to get into all this with her. And so this woman is like, oh my God, this is Labris. She's such an awesome writer, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm so excited about her book. And I'm just like standing there like, oh, great. So then after she leaves, my ex is like, you're writing a book? And I was like, gosh, shit. So then, it turns into this whole thing, and she's like very serious. And, again, she was drunk. She's like, I told you, I do not want to be famous. And it was this whole thing. And I was like, I'm going to sue you and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm not talking to you again. I'm done. Like, I can't. So then, like 2 or 3 days later, because this was in October, and it was, around Halloween, I'm at Victoria's Secret. I'm like, I need to get some underwear, because I also decided that life is too short for plain underwear. You have to have sex. Right. At least I do. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter if anyone's going to see them. I see them. So I'm at Victoria's Secret, and I'm looking at their like little boy shorts, and it says "Made That Witch Famous," and I was like, this is amazing. So like my cousin and a few other friends, like I bought, and I think some of them have them, and some of them I still have some, but it was just perfect timing of like, well, yeah, we're going to wear this. We had this whole plan on the back of my book. It was going to be all of our butts with underwear. And then I decided not to. The back of the book is different, but
I know. And you're a Taurus?
yes.
My husband is a Taurus as well. And you don't have to show us, but you have a tattoo
Yes.
with a fairy that has a tattoo with a Taurus.
Yes, it is on my thigh, so it would probably be a little complicated.
So how did you come up with the idea of getting that particular tattoo?
This was probably a year after I had left my marriage, and I just was like, I want this free spirit, this alter ego, which, since then has become me. And, she basically has her hands up. And
have you named her?
I have named her, actually. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so on her thigh is the Taurus symbol, and then she's wearing a corset and high heels, and there's like music notes. So it's like her dancing with, her fairy wings. And so I just wanted to celebrate that freedom, to just.
That's her name.
There you go.
Freedom.
That's her name. Freedom.
Freedom.
All
now
right.
You've got her, that she's freedom. Now I've got some what I consider, I hope they're just, these are general questions that I end my shows with. They are not questions that are directed specifically at you, but just questions that I put together that I ask anyone, and just to get a general sense to know a little bit more about you. And the first question is, who is the one person that you have learned the most from in your life?
That's a good question. I would have to say, for better or worse, my mother. Yeah, she has since passed, but she was a very free spirit, which was awesome for her, not so awesome for me growing up.
Okay.
But she basically said I could be and do anything, and always encouraged me and said that I was beautiful. And, she was a curvier woman herself. And, there was never any body image shame or, that was all other things. But yeah, just the idea of really being true to who you are, whether other people like it or not.
That's wonderful. What is the worst thing that you have to do each morning?
What is the worst thing? I would probably say pick up dog poop.
And what is the best thing?
I would say waking up to my love.
That's great. What invention of the century has had the biggest impact on your life? And when I say century, I mean since the year 2000.
2000. That is interesting. I would say probably Facebook, because I've gotten to reconnect with people that I was in high school with, and I get to stay in touch with people that I don't see that live, all over the world. And that idea of connection, I think is really important. So I think
that's great. What is the single most important thing that you have learned in your life thus far?
That it's always better to be honest and be true to who you are. Because if you lie or if you're not, it's going to be obvious. It's going to be harmful to yourself, to others. And it's not going to, even if the truth is challenging and ugly or, something you don't want to deal with, it's just better, rip off the Band-Aid if you need to.
Amen. Amen. What was the luckiest moment of your life?
Oh my gosh, the luckiest moment. I think getting my Compostela in Spain for the Camino. Yeah, I see that as a miracle. So.
Now, this is interesting. What do you have the worst reputation for?
I feel like there are a couple of things. Well, I like to say that I am passionate as opposed to stubborn, being a Taurus.
Mhm.
So I would say that I can be very adamant or stubborn about things. But again, I like to say passionate.
And what do you have the best reputation for?
I would say being a genuine friend or partner and just really a good listener. And yeah.
Great. What aspect of your reputation is the least deserved?
Well, like I said, instead of stubborn, I would say passionate.
Okay. And the most deserved?
That I feel I am genuine. I really do care about the people in my life and people and animals, in general. Like I feel like that life is about love.
And this is all in your book, but what is the most daring thing that you've ever done with someone that you love, that you've just gone off and done with wild abandon, just to go out and say, let's go and do this and not think about any repercussions or tomorrow or anything?
Gosh, I feel like I did a lot of that by myself.
That's the title of your book.
Right?
How I Became the Love of My Life. Of course, if you did it with yourself.
Right. I jumped out of a plane on my 37th birthday. I mean, with a parachute, and someone didn't know what they were doing.
Well, I want to thank you for saying yes to me, because I hope that this is your first time. I hope that this is the beginning of many, many, many more. I hope it was fun for you. I want to thank you for being here. For everyone who joined us today, I want to thank you. I don't take lightly that you could have been anywhere else for the last hour. And the fact that you chose to spend it with us means the world to me. If this is your first time here, I hope that you will subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube. My show is all about celebrating artists of all walks of life and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? So please subscribe. Hit the like button if you did indeed like today's show. Please leave a comment on YouTube. What that does is that increases the ranking. And Labris, if anyone comments to you about the show, encourage them to go to YouTube and leave a comment there. That will give more eyes to this show. And also, I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. This is what I want you all to do. I want you to go to your Facebook page, and let's say the third name that pops up, I want you to reach out with a phone call, not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message. Labris, I want you to do the same thing. Call that person and let them know what they mean in your life. Then what I want you to do is I want you to go to Amazon.com, and I want you to order 2 copies of this book. I want you to keep one for yourself, and I want you to send one to the third person on your list. I'm going to do the same thing today. Just reach out to your friends. As a dear friend of mine says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And you never know what someone else is going through right now. I always say, if you are going to be out in a boat, make sure that you bring a skipper along. Now, I'm going to leave the screen, Labris, and I'm going to give you the entire platform to yourself. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone who's watching right now. And again, I thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you will continue to give to the world. Thank you for being here today. And I hope that you and I will remain friends for a long, long time. Thank you.
We will. Thank you so much. I just want to thank everyone that is watching. This has meant so much to me. I'm so grateful and inspired by everyone's feedback. And I'm just excited to keep moving forward. And hopefully I know some of you, and if I don't, hopefully at some point I will. And yeah, let's just all go out and do something today that brings you joy. So I just want to thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.